Ever been completely, stumped by why your video call just freezes right at the perfect moment?
Oh, definitely. Or just how an email gets across the world in like seconds.
Exactly. Feels like magic sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But today, we're actually going to pull back the curtain. We're doing a real deep dive into the physical stuff that makes it all work, the internet's infrastructure.
That's right. We're talking cables, servers, all the tangible bits, not just the Wi-Fi signal.
And we've got some great material to help us, a glossary of terms and a guide that kind of maps it all out.
Yep. The idea is to demystify it, to give you a clearer picture of what's actually happening behind your screen.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, there's some surprising things in here, even about something we use constantly, ready to explore the nuts and bolts.
Let's do it. Maybe start with the basic connection terms, like bandwidth.
Bandwidth, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone wants more bandwidth, right? The glossary uses that water pipe analogy. How helpful is that, really?
It's actually pretty good. Think of bandwidth as how wide that pipe is. A wider pipe means more water or data can flow through at the same time. So high bandwidth lets you stream movies without buffering, download big files faster.
Right. So if my connection's choppy, maybe my pipe's just too narrow for what I'm trying to do. That makes sense.
Exactly. Too much demand for the pipe size.
Then there's latency. The guide compares it to how long mail takes to arrive. How's that different from bandwidth?
Okay, so bandwidth is how much data fits in the pipe. Latency is how long it takes for that data to travel from one end to the other, the delay.
Ah, the delay.
Yeah. You could have a really wide pipe, high bandwidth, but if it's super long, it still takes time for the data to get there. That's high latency.
So not just volume, but speed of arrival. I get it. Crucial for things like online gaming, I bet.
Oh, absolutely. Milliseconds matter there. Now, getting this connection to us involves ISPs, right? Internet service providers. What's their role?
They're the ones who actually provide the connection.
Yeah.
Like they lay the cables, manage the network that reaches our homes or offices, kind of like the internet utility company.
Precisely. They build and manage that crucial last mile to get you online. They're the gateway.
Okay. And then there's DNS, the domain name system. The glossary calls it the internet's address book. Sounds important, but kind of invisible.
Totally vital. When you type, say, bbc.com,
Yeah.
your computer doesn't automatically know where that is.
Right.
DNS is like a massive distributed phone book. It looks up bbc.com and finds the numerical IP address, the actual server address.
So it translates the name we use into the number the network needs.
Exactly. Without it, we'd have to memorize like 199.232.19.81 for every site. Imagine.
Yeah, no thanks. That would be terrible. Okay, so DNS makes it usable. Now, what about bandwidth throttling? It sounds restrictive.
It can be. It's when your ISP intentionally slows down certain types of internet traffic, or maybe all of it during busy times.
Why would they do that?
Well, sometimes it's to manage congestion on the network, like closing a lane on the highway during rush hour, which is the glossary's analogy. Other reasons, too, sometimes controversial ones about prioritizing traffic.
Huh. Okay, so that explains some slowdowns potentially.
Oh.
Right, let's move on to the actual hardware, the physical bits. Servers. We hear that word all the time.
Servers are basically the workhorses. Think of them as powerful, specialized computers whose main job is to store information, websites, videos, your email, and then serve it up when requested.
Like digital librarians, the guide says.
Yeah.
You ask for a book, the librarian server fetches it.
That's a good way to think about it. You click a link, you're sending a request to a server somewhere.
And inside a local network, like an office, we have network switches, sorting mail locally.
Yeah, that's the glossary analogy. A switch connects devices within the same network, your computer, a printer, another computer, and directs traffic efficiently between them. It keeps local traffic local.
Okay, so switches handle the local neighborhood. But getting data between different networks, like from my house to Google, that's a router, right?
Yeah.
The traffic cop.
Exactly. Routers are smarter. They sit between different networks and decide the best path for data packets to travel to reach their destination, which might be across the world. They read the address and direct the traffic onto the right highway.
Got it. Then there's a patch panel. Sounds technical. Giant power strip for network cables.
Sort of. It's more like a switchboard. All the network cables from offices or servers run to this central panel. It makes it way easier to organize, connect, disconnect, and troubleshoot all those wires without having a huge mess.
Oh, organization. Key in those big server rooms, I bet.
Definitely. And all this gear servers, switches, routers, patch panels needs a place to live. That's the rack.
Just specialized shelving, basically.
Pretty much standardized metal frames designed to hold all this equipment securely, allow for airflow, and keep things tidy in data centers or server closets.
And airflow is critical, right? Cooling systems. The glossary compares them to car engine cooling. These machines must generate a ton of heat.
Oh, absolutely. Data centers are packed with powerful electronics running 24/7. Without serious cooling, massive air conditioning, smart airflow management, they'd overheat and fail very quickly. Heat is a huge enemy.
Makes sense. Okay, we've got the boxes. What about the wires connecting them? Cat 5, Cat 6, Cat 7 cables. Are these just different speeds?
Essentially, yes. There are different standards for Ethernet cables, those common network cables. Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 6a, Cat 7. Each newer category generally supports higher speeds and has better protection against interference.
Like faster generations of the same type of road.
Good analogy. Higher cat number usually means a wider, smoother highway for your data. The difference is in how the wires inside are constructed and shielded.
And the name twisted pair comes from actually twisting the wires inside. Why do that?
It's clever, actually. Twisting the pairs of wires helps cancel out electromagnetic interference from other wires or devices. Each twist reverses the direction of the interference, so it kind of cancels itself out. Better twists, better signal.
Simple, but effective.
Yeah.
Then there's coaxial cable. Usually it's your TV, right? How's that different?
Yeah, the kind you screw into your cable box. It has a central copper core, then insulation, then a metallic shield, then the outer jacket. That shielding is really good at blocking interference, which is important for video signals over distance. Different design for a different job, mostly.
Okay. And one more cable type. Dark fiber. Sounds mysterious. Unused cables.
Exactly. When companies lay fiber optic cables, digging trenches is expensive, so they often lay way more strands of fiber than they need right now.
For the future.
Yep. Those extra unused fibers are dark because they don't have light signals pulsing through them yet, but they're there, ready for future expansion, like pre-built highway lanes waiting for traffic.
Smart planning. Okay, zooming out a bit to the broader network infrastructure. What's a CDN content delivery network? Local libraries versus a central one.
That's the guide's analogy, and it's spot on. Instead of everyone getting, say, a popular video from one single server far away, a CDN places copies of that video on servers all around the world closer to users.
So it loads faster because it's coming from nearby.
Precisely. Much faster load times, smoother streaming, especially for images and videos. Most big websites use CDNs now. It makes a huge difference to the user experience.
I can see that. Next, peering. Direct roads between networks.
Right. Imagine two big internet providers, like Comcast and Verizon. Instead of sending traffic destined for each other through a third-party network, and maybe paying for it, they can agree to connect their networks directly at specific points.
Like a private shortcut.
Kind of. It saves money and usually reduces latency because the path is more direct. It's how different parts of the internet interconnect efficiently.
And the biggest networks, the absolute core, are tier 1 networks. The major highways of the internet.
Those are the giants, the huge global networks that can reach every other part of the internet without paying anyone else for transit. They connect directly to each other and form the backbone. Think companies like AT&T, Lumen, NTT.
The foundation. And how do other networks connect to these giants, or to each other, through points of presence or POPs, like train station hubs?
Exactly. A POP is a physical place, usually a data center, where a network provider has equipment allowing it to connect to other networks. It's an access point, an interconnection hub.
Okay. Then we get closer to home with the last mile, that final connection from my house or office.
Yep. That's the link from your ISP's local equipment to your actual building. It could be fiber optic, cable, coaxial, DSL over phone lines, even wireless. This part is often the bottleneck determining your final speed.
The local streets off the main highway.
Good way to put it. And connecting those local streets back to the main highways, that's backhaul.
So backhaul links my neighborhood network back to the ISP's bigger regional network and eventually the backbone.
Exactly. It aggregates all the traffic from the last mile connections and carries it to the core network. You need good backhaul capacity. Otherwise, even a fast last mile won't help much.
Makes sense. Okay, let's switch gears to wireless infrastructure, starting with spectrum. Radio frequencies, like different radio stations.
Perfect analogy. The airwaves used for wireless communication are divided into different frequency bands, the spectrum. Different technologies like 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi, broadcast TV, they each get allocated specific slices of the spectrum to use so they don't interfere with each other. It's a finite resource.
And the things broadcasting on these frequencies, base stations, like cell towers, walkie-talkie central.
Yeah, the base station is the main antenna site for a cell network in a given area. It sends and receives signals to your phone and connects it back to the wired network. That's your phone's main link.
Could we also see smaller antennas, especially in cities? Are those small cells? Mini cell towers.
Exactly. 5G in particular uses higher frequencies that don't travel as far. So to get good coverage and capacity, especially in dense areas, networks deploy lots of these smaller, lower power base stations, small cells, to supplement the big towers.
More connection points, basically.
Right, densification. And of course, transmitting and receiving these signals requires antennas. The ears and mouth for radio waves, pretty much. The antenna is the physical component that converts electrical signals into radio waves for transmission and vice versa for reception. Their design is crucial for signal strength and direction.
And backscatter. Signals bouncing off things like echoes. Does that matter?
It does. Radio waves bounce off buildings, hills, even people. Sometimes these reflections help fill in coverage gaps, but they can also cause interference, making the signal weaker or garbled. Engineers have to account for this when designing networks.
Fascinating. Okay, we've covered a lot. Let's step inside the heart of the internet data centers. We mentioned server racks, already cook cases.
Right, the fundamental building block for organizing equipment vertically. Saves space, helps cooling.
And keeping the power on is critical. UPS, uninterruptible power supply, like a generator.
It's the first line of defense. Big batteries, essentially. If the main power grid fails, the UPS kicks in instantly to keep everything running smoothly while the big backup generators fire up. Prevents data loss or service interruptions. Absolutely essential.
And HVAC, we talked about cooling, but it's more than just AC, right? Climate control.
Oh, yeah. It's about precise temperature and humidity control. Too humid, you get condensation. Too dry, static electricity. Both are bad for sensitive electronics. So sophisticated HVAC systems maintain the perfect environment.
And they use clever layouts, like hot aisle, cold aisle. How does that work again?
It's about efficiency. You arrange the rack so all the server fronts, air intakes, face one aisle, the cold aisle where chilled air is pumped in. All the backs, hot exhausts, face the other aisle, the hot aisle.
So you don't mix the air.
Exactly. You feed cold air where it's needed and channel the hot air away directly. Much more efficient than just flooding the whole room with cold air.
Clever. And delivering power within the rack uses a PDU, power distribution unit, like a heavy-duty power strip.
That's a good description. It takes the main power feed coming to the rack and distributes it safely to all the individual servers and switches plugged into it. Often they're smart, too, allowing monitoring of power usage.
Okay, power and cooling sorted. What about security? We need security infrastructure, starting with the firewall, the network's security guard.
That's the classic analogy. A firewall sits at the boundary of a network and inspects incoming and outgoing traffic. It has a set of rules, and if traffic doesn't follow the rules, maybe it's from a known bad source or trying to access something it shouldn't, the firewall blocks it. First line of defense.
Then there's a DMZ, or demilitarized zone. A buffer zone. Why have that?
Okay, imagine you have servers that need to be reachable from the public internet, like your company's web server or email server. You don't want those sitting directly on your internal private network where all your sensitive data is.
Right, too risky.
So you create a small, isolated network segment, the DMZ, between the internet and your internal network. You put the public-facing servers there. If one gets compromised, the attacker is still isolated from your main internal systems. It's an extra layer of protection.
Ah, makes sense. What about a proxy server, a middleman?
Yeah, a proxy acts as an intermediary. Instead of your computer connecting directly to a website, it connects to the proxy server, and the proxy server connects to the website for you.
Why do that?
Several reasons. It can hide your real IP address for privacy. Companies use them to filter content or log web access, and they can sometimes speed things up by caching frequently accessed web pages.
Okay. And lastly, for security, VPNs, virtual private networks, secure tunnels. Lots of people use these now.
Right. A VPN creates an encrypted connection, a secure tunnel between your device and a VPN server somewhere else. All your internet traffic goes through this tunnel.
So no one can easily snoop on your data, especially on public Wi-Fi.
That's the main benefit. Yeah, privacy and security. It also makes it look like you're browsing from the VPN server's location, which can be used to bypass geographic restrictions.
Gotcha. Okay. Almost there. Let's look at some emerging technologies. Edge computing. Bringing computing closer, like local grocery stores.
Exactly. Instead of sending all data from, say, a sensor or a smart camera all the way back to a central cloud data center for processing, edge computing puts smaller bits of computing power closer to where the data is generated and the edge of the network.
Why is that better?
Speed. It drastically reduces latency. Think self-driving cars needing to react instantly, or factory robots. You can't wait for data to travel hundreds of miles and back. Edge makes near real-time processing possible. It's a big shift.
Yeah, I can see that. And 5G infrastructure. We hear about 5G all the time. It's the actual physical stuff needed for it, like new highways.
It is. 5G requires a different kind of physical network. It uses higher frequency spectrum, which means faster speeds and lower latency, but the signals don't travel as far.
So you need more towers, more antennas.
More antennas, and specifically more of those small cells we talked about, deployed much more densely. Plus, upgrades to the backhaul and core network to handle all the extra speed and capacity. It's a major infrastructure build-out.
Okay. And with all the smart devices now, the Internet of Things, we need IoT gateways, translators.
Pretty much. You have potentially thousands of simple low-power devices, sensors, smart lights, whatever. They might use different communication protocols. An IoT gateway acts as a bridge. It collects data from these devices, often translates it into a standard internet protocol, maybe does some basic processing, and then sends it onto the main network or cloud. They manage the communication chaos.
Organizes the smart home, basically.
The smart factory or smart city.
Yeah.
And finally, micro-trenching, a better way to install fiber, less disruptive, hopefully.
Yeah.
Traditional trenching to lay fiber cables tears up streets and sidewalks. It's slow and expensive. Micro-trenching uses specialized equipment to cut very narrow, shallow channels, often right in the curb or sidewalk edge.
So it's faster and cleaner.
Generally, yes. Faster, cheaper, and much less disruptive. It could help speed up the rollout of fiber optic internet to more areas, especially dense urban ones.
Okay, wow. That glossary covered a ton of ground.
Yeah.
Really helps define the pieces. Now let's look at that second resource, the How the Internet Works guide. It sort of weaves these pieces together into a story, right? Starting with the physical backbone, the cables.
Right. It emphasizes those fiber optic cables again, calling them super fast express lanes using light. And that mind-boggling fact, a single strand, thinner than hair, carrying tens of thousands of calls.
It's incredible. The capacity is just staggering. Using light pulses is the key, right?
Absolutely. Light travels incredibly fast, and they can send multiple light colors or wavelengths down the same fiber simultaneously. It's like having multiple lanes on that tiny strand.
The guide contrasts that with copper cables as the local roads. Slower, less capacity. Makes sense.
Yeah, copper still plays a role, especially in the last mile, but fiber is the king for long distances and high capacity.
And those underwater cables, connecting continents. The guide's analogy of a garden hose from New York to London filled with hundreds of fiber strands. That really paints a picture.
It does. These submarine cables are the absolute bedrock of global connectivity. Almost all international internet traffic travels through them, laying them with special ships miles deep on the ocean floor. It's a massive engineering feat.
So my email from Boston to London really might travel along the Hibernia Express cable on the seabed. Wild.
It very likely does. It makes the cloud feel very physical, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, then the guide talks connection points, internet exchange points, IXPs, busy traffic circles where networks swap data.
Exactly. Instead of, say, two ISPs in the same city sending traffic destined for each other all the way out to a major backbone hub and back, they can connect directly at an IXP in that city.
More efficient.
Much more. Lower latency, often lower cost. It keeps local traffic local. Think of it as a neutral meeting place for networks to exchange packages directly. Vital for a smooth-running internet.
And the other big connection points, data centers. Those giant digital libraries or warehouses storing everything.
Yep. Filled with the servers and storage that hold the websites, the videos, the databases, the cloud services. When you watch YouTube, you're connecting to servers in one of Google's massive data centers, maybe in Iowa, maybe Singapore, like the guide mentions.
The physical cloud.
That's it. Highly secure, power-hungry, cooled buildings full of computing power.
Then the guide brings it closer to home again. Last mile connections. I like cell towers being called wireless information lighthouses.
Nice image, isn't it? Broadcasting those signals out, connecting our phones to the wider network, they're essential for mobile access.
And in our house, the modem is the translator, turning the internet signal from the wall into something our network understands.
Correct. It modulates and demodulates the signal between the ISP's network language and your home network's language.
And the router is the traffic cop inside the house, directing data between my laptop, my phone, the smart TV, and sending stuff out through the modem.
Exactly. The router manages your local network traffic and acts as the gateway to the outside internet via the modem. So data flows from your Wi-Fi device to the router, to the modem, out to the ISP, and onto the internet. A mini hierarchy.
Okay, now how data travels. The guide explains IP, Internet Protocol, as the addressing system. like postal addresses for data.
Precisely. Every device connected to the internet needs a unique IP address so data knows where to go.
And data doesn't travel in one big chunk.
Right.
It's broken into data packets, like mailing a book page by page.
That's the core idea of packet switching. You break the information web page, email, video frame into small packets. Each packet gets labeled with the destination address, source address, and sequence number.
And they might even take different routes.
They can. The network sends them along the best path available at that moment. Then, at the destination, the packets get reassembled in the correct order using those sequence numbers. It's flexible and efficient.
So loading one web page might involve hundreds of these little packets flying back and forth.
Easily. Your browser sends request packets. The server sends back many more packets containing the text, images, code. It's a constant, rapid-fire exchange. Seems instant, but it's this complex dance of packets.
Amazing. And the guide finishes with practical applications, email, video streaming, visiting a website, tracing those packet journeys.
Yeah, grounding it in everyday use is helpful. Email is like super fast postal mail. Video streaming is like getting the data packets just in time to play them continuously, like someone reading you a book just ahead of you listening.
And visiting a website involves that DNS lookup first, finding the address, then requesting the content, getting it back in packets, and your browser assembling it all, like looking up a store, traveling there, and getting the goods.
Those analogies really tie it all together, showing how the cables, servers, protocols all work in concert for these common tasks.
This has been incredibly insightful. Seriously. The biggest thing for me is just realizing how physical the internet is. It's not just in the air. It's oceans of cables, buildings full of humming machines.
Absolutely. It's easy to forget when we just tap on a screen, but there's this vast, intricate physical infrastructure underneath it all, built and maintained by countless people. Understanding even the basics gives you a new appreciation for it.
It really does. It takes away the magic, but replaces it with, well, an appreciation for some incredible engineering.
Well said.
So next time you're doom scrolling or sending that instant message, maybe picture those packets whizzing through fibers under the sea. It leads to a final thought, though. What's next? With things like edge computing, 5G rolling out, what kind of future developments might fundamentally change how all this works? Maybe things we haven't even touched on.
That's the big question, isn't it? Quantum networking, maybe? Completely new ways to manage spectrum. The only certainty is that this infrastructure is constantly evolving, trying to get faster, more reliable, and connect even more things. The future will definitely look different.
Something to keep an eye on. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the physical side of the internet. Thanks for navigating those cables and data centers with us.
My pleasure. It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. Until next time, keep asking questions. Stay curious about how things work, both online and off.